At the beginning of the movie, a FedEx package is brought to a man. Angel wings are stuck on the package, and the person who gets it says it's from his wife, even though he is already with someone else. Continuing, Chuck is the main character. He works at FedEx as a system analyst executive. Chuck really cares about his job. He goes all over the world, and right now he's in Russia to improve the efficiency of the hub. To do this, he sent himself a package from Memphis, USA, to Nikola, Russia, at someone's house. The FedEx package is carried by a kid from that house, who runs to the FedEx hub and hands it to Chuck. Chuck then opens the package, which contains a clock. It started at absolute zero, and by the time it got to its destination, the clock read 87 hours, 22 minutes, and 17 seconds. By Chuck's standards, it shouldn't take 87 hours for a package to get to its owner, but we have to figure out why. Chuck Nolan is a man of deadlines and strict plans. Getting the packages to their owners on time is very important to him. But despite all the chaos in his personal life, he has managed to stay with his girlfriend Kelly for a long time. Chuck calls Kelly from Russia to tell her that he will be back home in Memphis in about 18 hours. Then, Chuck goes back to the United States and meets up with Kelly. They love each other more than anyone could. The pair. Then, they go to the grand Nolan family Christmas dinner, where Chuck's brother brings up the idea of them getting married, but they both laugh it off and don't answer. Chuck knows he needs to go to the dentist because his tooth hurts when he eats. Then all of a sudden, while Kelly is looking at him, he checks his pager. When they look at each other, Kelly can tell what is going on. Chuck has to go to work again, even though it's the holidays, and he plans to do so because he cares about his job. Kelly agrees with him and tries to find a middle ground by telling him to come home before New Year's Eve. Kelly gives Chuck an old watch, which Chuck agrees to at the airport. A Christmas gift is a piece of family history. Chuck is moved by Kelly's gift, so he gives her a small box that she thinks is a ring before he leaves. Chuck tells her that they'll open it together on New Year's Eve, when he comes back from his trip and heads to the airport to catch his flight. Then, Chuck and 4 other people on the flight crew fly to Malaysia. A storm comes up after a few hours of flying. Chuck overhears the pilots talking about losing all radio contact. After that, something explodes in the plane, causing a lot of turbulence. The plane starts to lose control, and one of the pilots hits his head pretty hard while trying to get Chuck to his seat. Chuck can see that the ocean is getting closer, so he crashes the plane into it. As soon as the plane starts to fill with water, Chuck starts to drown. One of the pilots gave him an emergency inflatable life raft to use in case of an emergency. Chuck is able to stay afloat with the help of that raft. But the weather is bad and strong waves from the ocean start to hit him. For Chuck, it's a matter of life or death. Chuck is lucky to be alive, and he ends up on an island where no one else lives. Chuck had just barely been able to get on the emergency raft. Chuck gets off the raft and checks to see that he still has his watch. He also finds some FedEx packages that were held up on the beach. After he gets the packages, he looks around and sees that he is the only one there. He can't see another island for miles. He draws a help sign on the ground to get the attention of any planes that might be flying by. He looks at the clock that Kelly gave him on the first day he arrived on the island. He finds a few more packages the next day. On the island, he finds coconuts, which he drinks to quench his thirst. He continues to look around the island and comes across a cave. Then, he climbs to the top of the island to see everything better. From above, he sees something in the water and quickly jumps in to find out what it is. But he is shocked to find that it is the body of the pilot who tried to save him. Chuck digs a grave and puts the dead pilot's body in it. Inside it, he gives the person he tried to save a place to sleep. Soon, his second day will be over, and he will still not be able to leave the island. At night, he keeps looking at the picture of Kelly that is inside the watch she gave him on the third night. A long way from the island, he sees a ship. He calls out for help, but the ship is too far away to hear him. He shines the small torch light at the ship, but that doesn't help either. Chuck packs up his things and rides the broken draft to try to get to the ship. But the tides are too strong, and he gets thrown into. When he cuts his leg on a coral reef, he screams in pain and gives up. When Chuck gets back to the island, it starts to rain hard, so he finds a place to hide. He goes into the cave, which he found a few days ago, to get out of the rain. Chuck finds a small stream of water inside the cave and starts to drink from it. Exhausted, by the end of the day, Chuck falls asleep, and the small torch stops working. He hopes to find something useful when he opens the packages the next day. He finds a bow in one of the packages. He also finds a dress and some skate boots. Now that he has the shoe, it's easy for him to cut open coconuts, and he uses the dress to catch small fish. He opens all the packages except the one with the angel wings sticker on it. Chuck doesn't open the package so that he has a reason to stay alive and deliver it to its rightful owner. He finally gets a small tin together and tries to start a fire. He tries for a long time, but nothing works. He finally gives up when he gets a cut on his hand. He throws everything he can see and yells as loud as he can. A few minutes later, he finds a handprint on the volleyball that is stained with blood. Chuck draws a face on the volleyball and puts it in front of him to make it look like he wasn't alone. He starts talking to the ball, and after a while he finally gets it. Chuck starts to dance around the fire because he is happy. He could finally feel good about something. He cooks a crab over the fire and eats it all while talking to the ball. The ball was made by Wilson's company, so he calls it Wilson. The next day, his teeth hurt very badly. He uses the skating boot and a rock to pull his teeth, but in the process, he loses consciousness. He has been stuck on this island for 4 years. Chuck doesn't look like he did 4 years ago. Wilson has also changed a lot since he has been on that island. His hair and beard have grown a lot. Wilson has become a big part of his life, but that hasn't kept him going all the time. One night while he is sleeping in the cave, he hears a noise. When he goes out to check, he finds a broken piece of a plastic door and takes it with him. Chuck looks at the piece of broken plastic door and wonders what to do with it. Chuck finally figures out what he can do with it. Chuck has made a monthly chart to figure out that it is now February, and he tells Wilson that they will leave when the sea waves are in their favor in April. In 2 months, Chuck plans to leave the island. Chuck starts to build a raft out of wood so he can get out of there. He also makes ropes out of the bark of trees and uses them to connect the woods. When he runs out of these ropes, he ties these woods together with cassette reels, but he still needs more rope. He goes to the top of the island to get more rope for the raft. Here, we see that Chuck had almost given up on his life after 4 years, and he was thinking about it. He didn't, though, and now he's using the rope and putting the plastic sheet in his raft in a way that will help it. Now is the right time. Before getting on his ship with Wilson, Chuck writes a message on a rock. To get away from the strong waves, he starts to row the raft. He fights the waves and keeps the raft from sinking. Chuck thinks that all of his problems are over. He is happy, and he stays on that raft for more days, hoping that it will take him home. But he doesn't know that he's going to have more trouble. Man, he doesn't have anything to drink. He has no food, so he drinks the rainwater that has collected in his raft and starts catching fish to eat. Then, one night, it starts to rain hard, and Chuck holds onto the raft for dear life. When the storm is over, the raft is in bad shape and Chuck can't find Wilson. He wants the ball, which has been his only friend for more than 4 years. Chuck starts to get scared, and then he sees Wilson floating away from the raft. He jumps into the water to help Wilson. He reaches out with one hand to get to Wilson while holding onto the raft with the other. The raft's rope keeps slipping out of his hand, so Chuck has to stop and get it back. But Wilson is getting farther away from Chuck because of all this. He tries very hard, but he can't get to Wilson, and Chuck gives up on getting him back and cries out in pain because he has to let him go. Wilson, the only friend he had on the island in the 4 years he lived there, is gone, and the raft is broken. It looks like Chuck has no chance. Chuck gets sick and can't even move. A whale squirts him with water, and a ship goes by. When Chuck finally opens his eyes and turns around, he sees a huge cargo ship going by. Chuck finally gets after all the bad things that have happened to him. 4 weeks later, Chuck is on a plane to go home and see his family. Kelly, one of his friends, tells him that everyone thought he was dead, so they held a funeral for him. After getting off the plane, he meets someone he doesn't seem to know. Then the person says that he is Kelly's husband. He tries to tell her that she was too upset and confused to see him because of her feelings. Chuck doesn't say or do anything because he doesn't know what to say or do. Who he kept thinking about while living on that island for more than 4 years had married someone else. His family and friends throw a party to celebrate the fact that he is still alive. After everyone leaves, Chuck looks at a lobster, which reminds him of the crabs he ate on the island. He also looks at a lighter, which reminds him how important fire was to him. Chuck can't even sleep on his bed. He is lying on the ground and looking at the same watch Kelly gave him years ago. Even though she was already married, Chuck needed to put an end to it. So, he takes a taxi to Kelly's house right before Chuck rings the doorbell. Kelly lets him in by opening the door. When Chuck wants to say something, Kelly hugs him right away. Kelly was surprised to see that he still had hands, the watch she gave him as a gift, because it's a family heirloom. Chuck wants Kelly to wear her watch. Kelly then tells him that she kept his car after he disappeared. She gives him the keys to the car, and Chuck gets in. They give each other a kiss, but Kelly pulls away. Chuck starts to drive away, and Kelly realizes that she still has more to do. She calls Chuck's name and runs toward him. Chuck gets out of his car as well, and they kiss. Kelly says that after 4 years of him being lost, she had to let him go, but she will always love him. Chuck says that he loves her too, but he knows it's too late for them to get back together. Kelly can't leave our family behind either, so they've decided that it's best for each of them to leave. We see him driving at the end of the movie. He's going to send all the packages he opened on the island to their destinations. He goes to a house, but no one is there, so he leaves a package with the message on the door. This package kept me from dying. Chuck Nolan, thank you. Chuck stops to look at the map as he drives back. He is trying to figure out what to do next. Then, a woman pulls up next to him and asks if she can help. Ask Chuck where the road in front of him goes. After answering this question, the woman goes back to her car and drives away. On the back of her truck, Chuck sees the same angel wings that were on the package he didn't open on that island. The package that gave him the will to stay alive and saved his life belonged to the woman he had just met. And if you remember what her husband was doing at the beginning of the movie, she might be single.